Good afternoon, Your Highnesses, Excellencies and dignitaries and members of the ABLF network, as well as all of our brilliant guests here with us today. My name is Resham Kotecha. I'm a policy and strategy specialist based in the UK, and as ever, I am delighted to be here at the ABLF. I have a brilliant woman with me here. Sindhu Gangadharan holds dual responsibilities at SAP. She is the Senior Vice President for SAP's entire product portfolio, and in addition to that is also the MD of SAP Labs in India, responsible for product development and innovation. SAP Labs in India is the largest research and development centre outside SAP's headquarters in Germany and is a leading hub for innovation. She's incredible. She's worked on various products, technology and innovation platforms and has held many strategic and leadership positions managing global teams. She's a member of the NASSCOM Executive Council, which is the industry body for the IT-enabled services in India, is a member of the steering committee of the India-German Chamber of Commerce, and was recently appointed to the advisory board of Reloop by SAP. I could go on, but let's just hear from the woman herself. So Sindhu, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Resham. It's such an honor to be here in this very esteemed team. And thank you so much also for having this in a virtual mode, and really happy to be here today.
Fantastic. So I'm going to jump straight in because, as some people will know, but not enough, SAP has done amazing things to leverage its technology expertise in order to build solutions to counter COVID. So can you tell us a little bit about what you've done and how that's helped fight COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you just look at the last 1 year, Resham, or even more, a little bit more than the last 1.5 years, I think all of you would agree that COVID has kind of been in the backdrop, right? It's been there, and particularly if I just look back at the second wave that hit India, this was particularly quite a challenge to deal with it at multiple fronts. Yes, on one side, driving a large organization, we have 14,000 large family in India, and keeping all our employees safe and making sure that every need of theirs is being addressed was absolutely front and center in terms of priorities and focus. But on a very serious note, our core vision at SAP is also to make sure that we help the world run better, right? And this vision and this purpose for us absolutely gained even more significance when we talk about a crisis like COVID-19. So we didn't take long to scale our relief efforts for our employees, but we also made sure that we brought together our best minds to also bring in the relief efforts for the community by working also very closely with the government and also leveraging our own technology, which is something that we are very passionate and we are very focused on. And there were so many proposals even coming in from all our development teams that at that point in time, we very quickly also created what we call as a COVID technology committee to efficiently also look at how some of the solutions that we were addressing for specific parts of India could also be scaled out to the rest of the nation, right? Because if you remember, Resham, when the second wave hit India, one of the things that was clearly a big challenge was the shortage of medical oxygen. Right, this was one of the biggest challenges faced by the entire country, right? I guess it was pretty much the news across the world. And I have to say, we also played a very key role in helping drive solutions. So our teams at Labs India built a solution that integrated directly with the India government's oxygen digital tracking system, the ODTS as we call it, and helped in actually streamlining the oxygen supplies across the country. And because we're very strong on the supply chain side, so we made sure that we could kind of track that entire supply chain, leveraging our SAP technology. Of course, this was possible given that 80% of India's major oxygen manufacturers run SAP, right? Which of course helped in accelerating that integration and allowing for us to work very closely with the government authorities to roll out and also test the solution, I have to say, in record time. And that's just one of the many examples, right? And I also want to tell you one of the solutions that we built for our employees, because like I told you, the first and front and center was the safety for our own employees. And back in March of this year, when the situation was much better, we thought we'd reopen with 10% of our capacity. But at the same time, we wanted to do that without compromising the safety of any of our colleagues. And our team at SAP, the Smart Labs team, as we call it, very quickly leveraged technology to build an app which allowed for employees to make sure that also aspects like using artificial intelligence to detect mask wearing correctly, and also contact tracing to ensure that everybody who's on our campus was following the COVID protocols. So these are just few of the examples, Resham. But what I want to say is the possibilities are incredible. And when it comes to a crisis of this magnitude, I can absolutely say technology is your best bet.
I think we've all been able to benefit from that, as you say. This conference today is a case in point. You know, people all around the world able to hear from you. But you have mentioned a lot of changes that SAP had to make. So it's been a year and a half since the onset of the pandemic. What are your learnings over the past year and a half, and how do you see that changing the way you and SAP are going to work moving forward?
Yeah, clearly, right? I mean, it's been definitely a year which will stand out for multiple reasons. Now, in terms of business, what I can say is the pandemic has only accelerated our growth at SAP. There's absolutely no question about that. Because SAP, we empower enterprises to become intelligent and sustainable enterprises. And when you ask me, across industries, right, digital transformation is at the heart of this journey when we talk about having a sustainable enterprise. And I can tell you from my own experience, Resham, and every single CIO I speak to these days want to accelerate their digital transformation journey to future-proof their business, right? And that conversation is only accelerated multi-fold, multi-year ahead as we speak. So business-wise, I'd say we are seeing a much faster growth when it comes to managing our people. Like any other organization, we also adapted a lot of changes induced by the pandemic, of course, across the various phases. And we, of course, continue to evolve it, like I mentioned earlier on, even today. And remote working for us was not new at SAP, definitely not. We've always had a policy in place to allow our employees to work remotely, but think about the magnitude here, right? Because we were executing the same for an audience as vast as 14,000. Definitely that was a mammoth experience in itself. But I have to say I'm very proud of also our admin teams as well as our IT teams to make sure that this was a very seamless experience for all of our colleagues. And since last year, if I look back, we virtually onboarded close to 3,000 employees into the organization. Wow. So I'd say the pandemic did not really spoil our hiring plans. And now we have even adapted this new normal of working, Resham, because SAP was the first company to announce 100% flex work policy. And what this translates into is we empower all our colleagues to choose where they can work from, how to work, and when to work, right? And so accordingly, what we're also doing is we are redesigning our campuses, because we have a very beautiful campus in Bangalore, but also in 4 other parts in India here. And we're building our second campus also in Bangalore. And we're looking at how that design completely supports this hybrid working model so that our employees are really empowered to run at their best, right, irrespective of their location of work. So all in all, I'd say, Resham, the pandemic truly has tested our human spirit. But when I look back at the last year, I could only say that I'm super grateful for all the support that we've received, because I think the pandemic also brought us together even more as an organization. And that I think is truly phenomenal, and also underlines the great work culture we have clearly built consciously over the years. And now you could really see that in coming together. So irrespective that we were all spread across different parts of the world, and also here in India, different parts of India, I think that culture is what really stood out, and something that we are very proud of at SAP.
I just want to pick up on something you mentioned there, Sindhu. You've talked about, your 14,000 employees in India and how many you've onboarded. given that SAP Labs is your second largest R&D centre, how do you view India as a market in terms of hiring, given the demand for tech talent is at an all-time high? How do you manage that?
Yeah, great question, Resham. And like you said, right? Yes, Labs India is the largest lab in the SAP universe. So the SAP universe is 130,000 of us across 180 countries. And in that, Labs India is the second largest R&D hub for us at SAP outside Germany, where our headquarters is. And in fact, what is very unique about Labs India, Resham, is that we are the only lab in the SAP ecosystem where we have the entire breadth of SAP's portfolio in one location, right? And that makes it very unique. It's a huge strength for us. And this again results in also a lot of investment, like I said, because for SAP, India is a strategically important destination. And the other aspect, which is also super relevant for the markets that we serve here, is also the growing MSME market, right? So the micro, small, and the medium enterprise market, and the industry here in India for this market is also a huge area of interest for SAP from a business standpoint. And I briefly mentioned hiring, right? So last year we hired about 1,600 people in India, and this year already in the first half of 2021, that number is already done, right? So we have already hired that number, and we now have doubled our target for 2021. And now Labs India remains a preferred employer in the technology industry, and this is because of multiple factors. We have a very high innovation culture index and some amazing people-friendly policies, right? In fact, we are one of the top-ranked workplaces for women in technology in India. And so to your question, yes, the demand for tech talent remains at an all-time high because it goes back to the point that I made earlier on. Across all industries, everybody is going through a massive acceleration when it comes to digital transformation, which of course results in the huge demand for the IT skills across these industry sectors. But at the same time, the demand for tech talent also for us remains high, and our flexible work policies also adds to the fact that we, of course, can widen our search and also onboard the best industry talent, not just onboard, but also retain the best industry talent here in India. And this is also backed up by the SAP Executive Board, who are also very well invested in the youth. We have a very young talent pool in India, which we absolutely want to tap into. And we're already collaborating on that front with multiple universities, multiple research institutes, to also hire early talent, because we have a lot of programs where we already work with the talent as they are going through their education, so vocational training, etc., so that we have that visibility into what we need at SAP, and it's also a win-win for early talent in the universities. So as a destination, India remains an absolute priority for SAP.
I want to pick up on that because you've mentioned several times about culture and women at SAP Labs, and you're obviously the first woman to lead SAP Labs India. So what's your advice to women looking to carve out a career for themselves in tech?
Yeah, I think good. It's I think if you ask me, it's a brilliant time to be in technology. There's no doubt about it. And particularly, I'd say this is a brilliant time to be in technology for women, right? Because with so many technology firms, including SAP, going really remote, right? When I talked about the pledge to flex, I mean, it's a huge transformation for us as an organization as we go through that change. But if you just look at it and put yourself in the shoes of millions of women out there, it becomes a brilliant opportunity for women who might have missed out on opportunities due to a lot of commitments, right? And not being able to move from where they are, or commitments from on personal commitments, multiple reasons, right? And here I think this is a massive transformation that's happening in the industries, which brings out a huge opportunity for women to participate in this growth, right? But otherwise also, I think technology offers one of the most rewarding careers. I can just say that. So I always invite more and more women to join this revolution and also make the best out of the opportunities that exist in these times. But I'd also like to call out one fact, right, which is, and you call it advice, but I'd just say it's also the experience from over the years that women need to be a lot more open and a lot more receptive when opportunities come their way. Because Resham, if I've seen in my own experience that a lot of women tend to overcomplicate opportunities when they are offered or when they come their way. And questions like, hey, am I good enough? Can I do it? A lot of those thoughts. And I just say, you never know unless you go ahead and try it out, right? So just go for it. And it's sometimes because otherwise, if you don't do that, you might just lose out on that opportunity, which probably is something that's going to change your entire career trajectory, right? So my request would be, if you're really passionate about building a successful career, just don't overcomplicate opportunities that come your way. I can just say that from my own experience, when I was offered this opportunity to come back to India after having spent 18 years at the headquarters in Germany and offered this role as the managing director of Labs India. If you ask me, hey, was I completely prepared for it back then? Absolutely not. I have no hesitation in saying that. Did I have a similar role before, where I had to steer the growth of such a large organization? Not at all, right? But still, I took it up because I knew I would put my heart and soul into it to make it a success. And I continue to work on that goal every single day, right? So I just say, don't shy away from opportunities because you don't know what one thing leads to another. And in terms of advice, oh my God, that's probably a heavy word. But I quote an advice that I received from one of my mentors, and this was really back in the times when I was starting off my career as a young developer in late 90s, right? So what she told me is, hey, Sindhu, no one can tell you you're not good enough. Only you can do that, right? And even then, you will always underestimate yourself. So what she said is, think bolder, be brave. And what I'll add to what she said is, while you're doing that, don't forget to have fun, which is also super important.
I think that's so valuable. I love what you said about imposter syndrome. And actually, I think that's really striking a nerve with the young people in our audience too. So what specializations in technology do you think hold the maximum potential for growth and employment for those graduating in particularly challenging times?
So like I said, right, what is consistently seen at this point in time across industries, across all the CIOs that I get to work with, is the rapid change in which transformation is happening, digital transformation. And what this means is, of course, investments into cloud. So if you just look at areas in terms of technology areas which you would like to focus on or specialize, I'd say focus on cloud technologies, focus on technologies that help in automation, be it using AI or machine learning, or aspects around, if you want to improvise on that, the data science aspect becomes super relevant, because it's always, when we talk about insight to action, then we are talking about making sure that we are able to analyze data at the scale and be able to drive actions based on that insight. So also focusing on data science capabilities and leveraging that becomes a very important technology specialization. But if you ask me, Resham, what also adds and complements to that, and which is also the beauty of what I've learned at SAP over the years, is to focus on the business process. Because when we understand how an end-to-end business process works, like for example, a lead to cash process could look very unique when you take a particular industry vertical, as in say manufacturing, or as compared to when you look at retail. So understand those nuances. Or if you look at processes like end-to-end hire to retire, where we are looking at an end-to-end process all the way from hiring to retiring, the human experience management space, understanding the nuances of those processes or if you look at strategic sourcing or strategic procurement, or if you look at aspects like design to operate, where you go across the entire life cycle of how you design a product to all the way until how you operate the product. So technology skills combined with that business knowledge is where that edge is going to be, because it's not just about, hey, I'm the best technologist and I have no clue about how the business works. So I'd say a combination of both, the understanding the business processes and bringing in the technology and really marrying these two. That's where you're going to see a big part of the transformation that's happening. So I'd call out to all the young audience to really hone in, yes, on your core technology skills, but also make sure that you understand how businesses work, right? So that's what I'd say.
Thank you so much, Sindhu. And I want to pick up on your work with SAP on corporate social responsibility, because SAP is famous for having led a very strong CSR program in India. Can you tell us a bit about that and how that evolved during the course of the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, right, not just during the course of the pandemic, Resham, even beyond, if I reflect back on our core purpose, it's really about helping the world run better, right? And this is something that is front and center for us. And this translates into multiple aspects. So I gave you examples during the pandemic where we were leveraging technology to help drive the transformation that was so much needed in those times, to scale out also the relief efforts that was needed for the country, for the society, for our employees. And but besides that, a big part of what we are very passionate about is to help in the whole digital India movement, right? And when I talk about the digital India movement, if you just look at the demographics across India, for every individual to be part of that that digital journey, you need to also reskill the big parts of our of the nation, right? And a big part of what we do in terms of reskilling is also a huge investment that we make. So if you've heard about our programs called as Code Unnati, we're talking about really ensuring that also down to the level of school children to the youth have the opportunity to actually build up their digital skills, build up their knowledge on basic computer literacy, right? Even before you go into any of the complicated areas which allow them to drive their careers and so on, but giving them that digital literacy, going right into the schools, creating those digital modules and making it available. So we're working with multiple NGOs to help drive that scale, and we have touched several millions here in India in supporting that kind of digital literacy movement that's happening. Another aspect that I'm super passionate about is also helping women in technology and building up women in technology, and particularly, Resham, also helping women who've already chosen a career or a university degree in STEM, but don't have those opportunities where they come into the corporate world. So we're really zooming into those areas within states like in Karnataka, where they're not in the metros like in Bangalore, but bringing them into our campus, giving them an 8-week period where they experience what it means to be part of the corporate life. So the program that I'm talking about is Girls Power Tech. And the idea is really to bring them into the corporate culture, give them that experience, and then we close the loop, right? If we find a fit between the person and the skills that we are also looking to recruit, we close that loop as well. So many of these initiatives, Code Unnati, Girls Power Tech, we are also working as we speak with the World Economic Forum, and also looking at how we can leverage technology to bring a lot of the work that's happening across many of the partners of the web, bringing them together and also kind of scaling out the transformation that's happening. And I want to also call out, we also work with many of our own customers. Like, for example, we're working with our one of our largest customers here in India, Mahindra and Mahindra, on their project called Nanhi Kali, right? Nanhi Kali is really looking into the girl child and really from the privileged areas of the country where they really don't have access to education, working with Mahindra and Mahindra and kind of scaling that out. So we bring the technology expertise and work along with them to help scale that across the country. So I can go on and on, Resham, but this is, you can see this is something that we are super passionate about.
Absolutely, and I love it. And the feminist in me especially loves that real focus on girls. I want to roll back and pick up on something you'd mentioned much earlier in this session. You talked about the power of digitization to support your customers. What do you think are the biggest roadblocks when it comes to increasing digitization, especially in emerging markets?
Yeah, when you talk about roadblocks, I'd say I'd look at it more as the opportunities that exist more than roadblocks. Yes, of course, but the opportunities that exist out there when it comes to digitization, I think I mentioned it multiple times. It's huge, and that's even not specific to a particular industry but at the same time, many customers, especially in specific industries, need to be also shown, hey, these are the opportunities that exist. This is how you run your business today, and this is the power of technology, and this is how it's going to help you scale, right? And many times it's also about going to the drawing board, having what we call as a design thinking session, where really we are putting all aspects on and really co-innovating with our customers. I think that's super important because many times it's also going back to some of the classical business models, right? And not even reimagining how your business models could evolve as you go onto that design board. So I won't translate this immediately into roadblocks, but it's also about showing those little cycles of innovation, showing the success, and really helping businesses in that transformation. So for us, like if I reflect back at SAP, this is also why we introduced our business transformation service, what we call as RISE with SAP, and this was brought in exactly because many customers were clear, okay, the transformation needs are there, but how do I get there? And so it was super important that they had a trusted partner in SAP to really help them, irrespective of where they are, right? And irrespective of what kind of maturity levels they are at, but to really help them in their journey, handhold them, show them those incremental innovation cycles, show them what it meant for their business, and then kind of scale it out. So it can be starting in a subsidiary and then kind of taking it out to the other. So there's different ways to do it. So I'd say more than roadblocks, it's really working with your partners, working with them in a way that don't be afraid of technology. Technology is here to actually help you accelerate, help you grow, and really showing that with concrete examples. And that always helps you navigate the so-called roadblocks. No?
Sindhu, I'm so pleased that your final answer was you talking about collaboration and how technology can actually help us all. Such a valuable message to put out there. I wish we could keep going, but sadly we're at the end of our time. So Sindhu, thank you for your incredible insights and also all the hard work you've done and continue to do to help support us all. If you are in our audience and thought that this was brilliant, if you've got questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, please post them on our live social media wall with the hashtag ABLFCity. And remember that if you missed a part of Sindhu's session or any other session from today or previous conclaves, you can come right back here on the platform and watch any and all of them after today. So thank you so much, Sindhu, and thank you all for joining us. Remember that we are back every month featuring global leaders in powerful conversations.
Thank you so much, Resham, for having me here. Thank you.
Our pleasure.